And she finally had enough of Emma Watson, who was, super woke and, one of the useful idiots also on things like Gaza. And so, which tells you something that her views on Gaza were just as crazy, I think, as her views on, on the women thing.
She eventually expressed frustration with actress Emma Watson, who has been very vocal about progressive causes. The speaker suggested that Watson's public positions on international issues, including Gaza, were heavily influenced by activist narratives rather than careful analysis. In their view, these opinions appeared inconsistent and poorly thought out. The commentator argued that this pattern reflected a broader issue, where strong activism sometimes replaces balanced judgment. According to them, the approach taken on global conflicts mirrored the same rigid thinking seen in debates around social issues. The criticism focused on what they saw as a lack of nuance, rather than disagreement alone.
And, J.K. Rowling was just unmerciful. She was like, well, this is not an issue for you because when you go into a public bathroom, you have a bodyguard who stands outside the door, And she talked about how, when I was your age, I didn't have all this privilege that you're always so hateful. I was home working on the book that made you a star. It was, she...
The conversation also mentioned author J.K. Rowling, who responded very directly. She pointed out that some public figures speak from a place of comfort and security that most people don't have. Rowling contrasted that with her own early years, when she was working quietly without privilege or protection. She made it clear she was no longer willing to accept criticism that ignored these differences in experience.
You get to a point where, and I think on a lot of issues, I'm at that point where you're just sick of the BS.
He said that on many issues, he has reached a point of exhaustion with the noise coming from both sides of the debate. Constant arguments and exaggeration, he explained, have made it difficult to take extreme positions seriously anymore.
So tripped up by their own
orthodox
ideology that they think that makes them a better person, to be so counterintuitive about all these issues like this, that this makes them the good people, that they're way out ahead on this issue. And you're not, and it's not what people want, and it goes against human nature, and it's not helping. You want to champion women, and you didn't. You did the opposite.
I know, because there's the hierarchy.
You made them uncomfortable
and
100%, unnecessarily.
100%. Look,
in many ways.
He argued that some activists become so locked into rigid ideology that they mistake extreme positions for moral superiority. In their view, taking the most radical stance makes them believe they are more enlightened than others. However, this approach often disconnects them from what most people actually think and feel. He added that these positions frequently go against basic human instincts and fail to produce positive results. Rather than helping the groups they claim to support, such actions can create discomfort and confusion. In some cases, he said, the outcome is the opposite of the intended goal. According to him, efforts meant to support women instead ended up making many feel uneasy and overlooked. By prioritizing ideological hierarchy over real-world concerns, these movements lost sight of the people they claimed to champion.
I respect transgender people. I do not want to treat them like the others. I want them to have rights. I want them to be treated with dignity and respect.
Exactly.
At the same time, I also know what it's like to be a woman living in a state where we've decided self-ID makes the most sense. Okay, well, self-ID doesn't make the most sense.
No.
Because obviously, as you and I both know, there are all sorts of predators out there who are going to take advantage of that situation.
She said she fully supports transgender people having equal rights, dignity, and respect. At the same time, speaking as a woman, she questioned whether self-identification policies alone are always the best approach. She argued that while inclusion matters, policies must also consider safety and real-world misuse, and that better balance is needed to protect everyone.
So bad because I bought the cover story when it was first reported, but I was wrong to buy it. I should have asked more questions. And that poor woman, she happened to be a Black woman, who's complaining at the front desk of WeSpa, she was dragged through the mud when in reality, she witnessed this person fondling themselves in the women's locker room. Now, this person is not transgender. This is not an indictment of transgender people. It's an indictment of a policy that was not thought through. And as a result,
she admitted that she initially accepted the first version of the story without questioning it, something she later regretted. Looking back, she said she should have examined the facts more carefully instead of assuming the initial explanation was accurate. As the situation unfolded, it became clear that an important voice had been unfairly dismissed. She noted that a woman who raised concerns at a public facility faced harsh public criticism, even though she was reporting behavior she believed was inappropriate in a women-only space. According to later information, the individual involved was not transgender. She emphasized that this situation should not be used to judge transgender people as a group. Instead, she argued the issue highlighted problems with a policy that lacked sufficient safeguards.
First of all, good for you for saying that it's no shame to say, oh, I believe the cover story.
yeah, I did.
Because the cover story just means that everybody has their own narrative. Nobody pursues the truth on either side. You have to work really hard.
Yes.
But since it's my job, I do, to get the full story. Nobody ever prints if you read the New York Times and the New York Post, it's like these two, it's just funny to do it. Because it's like, oh, I see.
Poorly designed rules can leave people vulnerable and create situations that harm innocent individuals. Her conclusion was that thoughtful policymaking is essential to protect everyone involved.
Villain to the right because she wrote books about witchcraft. Now she's a villain to the left because she has the crazy belief that there's more to being a woman than pronouns and lipstick. So that was the point of the evening. How do we take a stand against cancel culture? And I suggested, since we were mostly all in show business, that we start an award show to honor the brave people who have fought back.
She praised the honesty of admitting when an early version of a story turns out to be wrong. She noted that accepting an initial narrative is common, because most people follow the version that fits their viewpoint. Finding the full truth, she said, takes real effort and careful comparison of sources. She explained that reading coverage from different outlets often reveals what each side leaves out. By comparing reports, gaps and omissions become clear.
Students there demanded trigger warnings before all the lectures in case any of the adult subjects you specifically went to college to learn about came up. And Martha said, yeah, no, we're not doing that. She didn't cave in or hire a new dean of sensitivity. She just said, no, college is for introducing you to new ideas, not for kissing your ass and making you feel wonderful and always right.
Responsible journalism requires questioning narratives rather than accepting any single version at face value.
I'm just amazed at how this generation can simultaneously be too sensitive for anything distasteful and somehow also so into eating So, Cornell, I present you with these balls. I sure could have used them when I was there.
J.K. Rowling has found herself criticized from very different sides over time. She was once challenged by conservatives for the themes in her books, and now faces criticism from progressives for expressing views about womanhood that go beyond surface-level definitions. This shift highlights how public opinion can change depending on cultural and political trends. She explained that this contrast was central to the discussion that evening. The larger question was how individuals can push back against cancel culture without fear. Given that many in the room worked in entertainment, she proposed recognizing those who have stood their ground by creating an event that honors courage and independent thinking.
Dozens of Netflix employees walked out over Dave Chappelle's reckless decision to perform comedy on his comedy special. CEO Ted Sarandos could have pulled the special and replaced it with more episodes of Who Wants to Watch Koreans Get But instead, he reminded his Netflix employees that comedy exists to push boundaries and told them if you'd find it hard to support our content breadth, Netflix may not be the best place for you.
This month, some students requested trigger warnings before lectures to avoid topics they found uncomfortable. Martha, however, stood firm and refused the request. She emphasized that college is meant to introduce students to new ideas and challenge them, not simply to confirm their existing beliefs or make them feel comfortable at all times. Her position highlighted the importance of exposing students to a wide range of perspectives as part of higher education, rather than catering to comfort over learning.